Thank you for attending the Spring 2017 Technology Training for Washington, D.C. schools and districts. Today we will be covering the PARCC ELA test and the PARCC math test. A brief overview of our training. We will first go over the timeline for DC and the test structure. We will discuss tasks that need to be completed before testing, during testing, and after testing. And then we will discuss available resources and support. Timeline and structure. The PARCC Spring 2017 testing window for DC schools, if students are testing on paper, is from 4/10 through 5/12. If students are testing online, the window is from 4/10 through 6/5. Critical dates that district and schools need to make sure to pay attention to: submitting updates through the UI through Pearson X Next or an SRP&P import for initial orders, materials to be sent to schools and districts. The deadline for submitting those updates is 2/24. Materials are scheduled to arrive in districts on 3/27. Proctor Caching test content begins on 3/27, 2 weeks prior to testing. Preparing test sessions. This window opens on 4/7. It is the Friday before the test window opens. This is a new step for districts and schools to complete before students are able to test online. Pearson Access Next. Navigating to Pearson Access Next, you will enter the URL dc.pearsonaccessnext.com. It will take you to this sign-in screen. A few things that are new in Pearson Access Next from last year, so things that were not available in Pearson Access Next in spring 2016, but will be available in spring 2017. Student enrollment is limited to one organization at a time. A student can now only be enrolled into one organization during a test administration. There is a new work request feature that we will go through later in this training, where if a student is currently enrolled into one school and they move to another school, the work request has to be completed. If it is during the test administration, the student cannot have two enrollments. The second bullet, school test coordinators must first prepare test sessions to assign the forms before a test administrator can start the session. Only school test coordinators and district test coordinators have the ability to prepare test sessions. Test administrators have the ability to start them once they're prepared, but the preparing has to be done by the school or district test coordinator. The third bullet, the option to print selected or print all test tickets in a test session. Previously, test tickets had to be printed by test session, and you could only print all of them for the number of students in the test session. There is now an option that you can select a few students and only print test tickets for those few students if needed. And the fourth, work requests. There is a request enrollment transfer process that district test coordinators can request the transfer of students registered in another organization outside of their own district. This request is submitted to the district that has the student currently registered, and then that school or district needs to approve or reject the request to transfer the student. Also new in Pearson Access Next, when creating an additional order, it is now a requirement for the user to provide an email address and phone number. When importing or exporting a file, the default extension is now CSV instead of fixed. You can easily change back to fixed by just selecting the other option in the drop-down, but the majority of users use CSV files for importing and exporting files. The Update Cache button is no longer in the Students on Session screen. When test content is cached, it's either cached by session or by test. All test forms at that grade and subject are downloaded to that Proctor Cashing machine. And the last bullet, when logged into Pearson Access Next with the organization set to a school in your upper right-hand corner in Pearson Access Next, Show All automatically displays all results on a page. So if you're going to see students or sessions or users, if your organization is set to a school level in that upper right-hand corner, you will automatically see all options available, all students in your school, all users in your school, all sessions in your school. You no longer have to select that Show All. And the last two new pieces to Pearson Access Next, when exporting a student registration file, the file details will indicate which parameters were chosen during the import or the export. Those details are captured for future use in View File Details. And the last one, when you're in a Students in Session screen, there's a PDF session roster available under the Resources download, or under the Resources drop-down. It's just a PDF of all of the students in that session with all the session details at the top of the page. Before testing. One of the tasks you will be completing before testing is when students move in between districts and schools during the 2017 test administration. It's managed under a new functionality called work requests. Only district test coordinators at the district level can create a transfer work request. If a district is unable to add the student to their school by creating them in the UI or in an SRPMP, you will get an error that the student is already enrolled to another school, and you will go through the completion of this new task to request enrollment transfer. It is under Setup in Pearson Access Next, and Request Edit Enrollment Transfer would be your task. So you just choose Setup Work Requests, and then the task would be Request Edit Transfer, Request and Edit Enrollment Transfer, and then it opens into the screen, and you would then put in the school that the school that the student was enrolled to and where you wanted to move them to. And you would submit the request, and a request will go to the school where the student is moving from, and they will approve it. To approve work requests, you will see that there is a bell on your upper header row of Pearson Access Next, a red bell. If you click on that bell, you will see how many transfer requests you have pending. If you are a district test coordinator, you will see this bell, and you can click on transfer requests, and it'll take you to this screen, and then you can, in your task drop-down, select approve, reject enrollment transfers, and then first select your transfers that you are wishing to approve or reject, and it will take you to the screen where you can approve or reject the student transfer to another school or district. Very, very good information is available at this Avocet document, avocet.pearson.com/parc-home #10525. There is detailed work request instructions with screenshots and at different points during the process of when you can approve or reject. If you are the school where the student is moving to or the school where the student is moving from, please consult this document for more information. Technology readiness for administrators. The following technology guidelines should be consulted first. The documentation is available at parc.pearson.com/technology-setup/. And there you will find all of the requirements for if you are choosing to test on a browser for TestNav. Browser-based TestNav, if you see, is only allowed for on Firefox ESR 45. There are setup instructions that you can click on if you choose to use TestNav in a browser. And the other option is your installable app. At this link, you can also download the installable TestNav app, depending on if you are on a Chromebook or on an iPad or on a desktop, Windows or Mac, and then the accompanying setup instructions for each. You just have to click on each one of these. Really quick update to iOS 10.2 and Mac OS 10.12. iOS 10.2 was released in December, and it is now supported for PARCC testing for spring 2017. Apple resolved a test security issue that was first communicated back in September. Didn't affect DC because you did not do any fall testing, but for states that did fall testing, there were some workarounds. Everything is squared away and ready for spring. Just to pay attention that in case you read the technology bulletins with the difficulty in 10.2, that we are now ready for spring testing. To upgrade your TestNav, currently available version of the TestNav app, the currently available version for the TestNav app will be used for spring 2017. The TestNav app can be downloaded at download.testnav.com or through your online app stores, whether it's the Chrome store or the App Store. The current version of TestNav that you need to make sure that you have when opening the app, it's 8.8. There will be a dot and then numbers afterwards, and that will be a different version depending on which time period we're in, but 8.8 is the updated version of TestNav that needs to be used for spring testing. If you have not updated since last spring, you need to make sure that this TestNav version is the most up-to-date. The old version will not work for spring testing. To talk a little bit about Proctor Caching with TestNav, Proctor Caching is the Pearson software that's used in conjunction with TestNav to pre-cache test content in an encrypted way to your local network before students' tests. It is highly recommended. It is not a requirement to use Proctor Caching. It does reduce the burden on your ISP, and it also stores that encrypted local copy of content, so you are pulling it directly from your local network. Proctor Caching requirements, lots of information, more information on Proctor Caching at download.testnav.com. The Proctor Caching installer is located there, and then the system requirements are at support.assessment.pearson.com. Please check out this Proctor Caching system requirements and download the installer. And then just a few bits of information you'll need after you install, the TCP ports that you will need to use. You will need a fixed internal IP address when you're configuring TestNav for Proctor Caching. There is a TestNav 8 Proctor Caching user guide available that we definitely encourage you to use. And then there's some assessing testing capacity tools that we can use to determine network capacity for computer-based testing. Again, it is a tool. It is not a end-all be-all for your testing network capacity. The TestNav apps, if you go to download.testnav.com, you'll see this screen. If you're testing on laptops or desktops, you'll see different availability, whether it's OS or Windows. If you're testing on tablets, which store you can pull those from, and then Chromebooks, TestNav for Chromebooks. If you are choosing to use browser-based testing, you'll see with Firefox ESR 45 to download that version, and then at the very bottom of your screen you'll see Proctor Caching installers. To create TestNav configurations to prepare for Proctor Caching, this is done in Pearson Access Next. You will create a new TestNav configuration, and you will need to, this is where you will fill in your port number, your IP address, your computer name. This is the computer that will end up downloading the cache content onto, and this computer is the one that needs to be available when students are going to test online. If you need to edit any existing TestNav configurations, you would just click that same task, create and edit TestNav configurations, and you would select your existing configuration, and you could make your edits there if you have an edit to your IP address, etc. When you are ready, when your TestNav configurations have been set up and you have your pre-caching computer ready, your Proctor Caching computer ready with your Proctor Caching installer downloaded, in Pearson Access Next, you will go to Sessions, and you will select the sessions, and you could pre-cache test content from the session screen, or you can pre-cache under Setup and click on Setup and then pre-cache by test. This is two options to Proctor Cash. Once you have done those steps and selected your tests, You will watch your installer, your forms as they are downloaded. You will get green OK buttons. You'll get yellow loading buttons or yellow waiting buttons while it's in queue, and at the end, all of your status symbols for all forms should be the green OK button. You can check on your diagnostics by clicking on the Test button. Select Test tab for information about test content and caching status. You can go to the Clients tab to monitor client connectivity, and you can click on Settings tab to just reset your Proctor Caching password if needed. There is a default password that's listed in the guide as well. Again, your Proctor Caching resources. Under support.assessment.pearson.com, there's guides, system requirements, user guides, setup guides, and then we do have a training module that walks through Proctor Caching setup step-by-step at parc.pearson.com/training-models/. A very good resource for training modules and videos that will walk you through step-by-step for whichever part of the process in setup that you are. A quick site readiness check that you can run, it's the Assess Testing Capacity task. You will need to have your Proctor Caching computer ready. You will go through the steps one by one. It's kind of like a wizard. Again, this is only a tool. This does not walk you through and tell you exactly what will happen on the day of testing. Lots of dependencies and things that can change in between the time that you run this tool and the time that you actually go to test. So be aware whether or not you choose caching or not, the time of day that you complete these tasks, if it's a heavy bandwidth time with students on the internet, etc. The best thing you can do is run these tools during the time of day that you will be testing your students online. And then kind of the surefire way of confirming that your infrastructure is set up to the way that it needs to be for online testing for PARCC is to run through an infrastructure trial. We call it a dress rehearsal. You're making sure TestNav's configured, your devices are able to run the updated version of TestNav, that your network is ready to go, you don't have antivirus software that's popping up when students are trying to log into TestNav. All of this is done in the PARCC training environment. That URL is trng for training, trng.pearsonaccessnext.com, and it's the exact same layout and look of Pearson Access Next, except all of the headers are brown to indicate you're in a training environment. This is kind of a practice playground environment that you can use to set up sessions, configure TestNav, Proctor Cash. The tests that are in the training center that students can take are practice tests. So they are not secured content. You can have students come into a room. Let's say you've got a grade 5 math students. You can create sample grade 5 students. You can put them into a test session. You can cache their test. You can have them log into TestNav, and all those instructions are available in the infrastructure trial module at parc.pearson.com. During testing, one thing to confirm before you prepare your test sessions is that all form assignments are up to date. If you have a student that requires an accommodation, make sure in the test session that the student has the indicator next to their name in the test session. If a student, for example, needs a text-to-speech form, when you're looking at them in your students and session screens on PA Next, confirm that they have a TTS indicator next to their name. If not, when you go to prepare sessions, that student will not get the text-to-speech form like they need. So make sure that student, if a student needs a text-to-speech form, or a student needs a closed captioning form, or a Spanish form, make sure that that student has that form available to them by confirming that indicator before you prepare the test session. And something new this year are also accommodation reminders. These are not anything that has to be changed or updated, nothing about an accommodation reminder will prevent a student from taking a test. It's just a reminder that they need to have, that they have these accommodations, and to make sure that their IEP or 504 indicate that they do in fact need these accommodations. They're going to be available in the main header bar of Pearson Access Next. There will be a flag, and if you click on the flag, you will see accommodation reminders, and it's really just another check to confirm that the student does in fact need those accommodations. Testnet, once you open up Testnet, if you're opening it up for the first time, you will see a list of states. If you are going to take the practice test, you will need to select PARCC training. If you are going to be logging into operational tests, you will need to select District of Columbia. To run the app check, just to confirm that everything is ready before testing day, you can open up the TestNav app on each device, and up in the drop-down, the user drop-down, there is a button in the drop-down that you can select. It's called App Check, and it will confirm that you are connected to the Proctor Caching computer and everything looks ready to go. A couple of things that are new in TestNav 8.7. DC did not take 8.7. You're going to skip directly from 8.6 to 8.8. 8.7 was used for fall testing, but just a little bit to cover of what was new in that you will also see when you upgrade to 8.8. The practice test and tutorial availability in browsers. You can now access practice tests and tutorials using Chrome and Microsoft Edge. These practice tests and tutorials are available at parcc.pearson.com, and previously to 8.7 you could not access those in a browser. You cannot access them in Chrome or Microsoft Edge. The next one, iOS TestNav app changes. There was a new app released in August of 2016 that included significant changes. You have now enabled the microphone permission, the automatic assessment configuration that Apple introduced. It now eliminates the need for guided access mode. What's new in TestNav 8.8? The TI graphing calculator can now be moved around the screen from up and down as well as side to side. There are new drawing interaction enhancements. You currently only used for PARCC and grade 3 math, but there's 2 usability enhancements to the pencil and eraser icons. Students are now able to also draw dots by just clicking and touching on the canvas. We have further touchscreen support in Chrome OS and Windows. They can now utilize touch functionality to navigate and respond within TestNav. And the last one on this screen, the answer eliminator for hotspot items, is now available for all hotspot questions. The last thing available new for TestNav 8.8, the last 3 things, there is support now for an Android 7.0 operating system, and we've added that to the system requirements page for TestNav. There are app check enhancements. The new app check verifies your connection to TestNav. It verifies your connection to Proctor Cash. It also requires you to enter a new configuration identifier that's available in your TestNav configuration in Pearson Access Next, and then it verifies any blacklist applications that are not open. A few technology tips available. The first one, it is very good practice to document the specific device on which each student will be testing for each unit of the test. This will aid in response recovery if it becomes necessary. So if you hand out a pile of Chromebooks or a pile of iPads, have the students indicate on their student testing ticket or another document the name or number, whichever naming convention you use for your devices, indicate which device each particular student used. The second one, if a student receives an error, do not immediately move them to a new device. Have them sign back into the same device. Then under the user icon in the top right, where you can sign out, this will send all responses stored locally on the device to the testing server. And then always have the student sign out if they won't be submitting their test. Never just turn the power of the device just off. Basic technical troubleshooting. Common error codes that students are seeing when they log into Testnet. 1001 that your test has been saved. Please notify your test administrator. Possibly something has gone off and antivirus software has popped up and it has logged the student out. A few other error codes to pay attention to. Some that we're seeing more recently is that the app is not most up to date, so please make sure before students log in that you have Testnet 8.8, the most recent version of Testnet if you are running the app. Another common error codes, next steps after that happens, you just will need to resume the student test in Pearson Access Next. You will want the student to log in again on the same testing device, and on that testing ticket you will see that optional local testing device ID field. Have the student complete that each time they log into a unit to verify and confirm which device they're using if you need to go back. If you have further errors, you may contact the technology coordinator. Another common error in testing is students logging into each other's tests. So student A logs into student B's test, immediately have them exit the test and notify your district test coordinator. The test coordinator will immediately contact the state. The state can move the test and if they need to, void the unit. SRF files or student response files. These are locally stored files that keep 1 or 2 responses at a time as those responses are getting uploaded to Pearson servers. Before moving a student to another device during a unit, have the student sign out and document which device the student was using previously. Occasionally you have to retrieve those student response files that are stored locally. Additional documentation to do that can be found here. You would be directed by a Pearson Level 2 call center agent that would ask you to send the SRF, the encrypted SRF file to Pearson to load if needed. Resources and support. Resources that are available for Pearson Access Next are in training modules. They are at parc.pearson.com/training-modules. If you can navigate there from parc.pearson.com, there are spring testing modules specific to spring testing available. Just overall welcome to Pearson Access Next, an overall introduction, test session management, user account module, monitoring student test status modules. In previous years, we had longer trainings, longer modules available, and we have since broken them up into smaller, more consumable modules, so you can choose the module that you need to watch and be trained on at that particular time, and then you can come back to the rest of them later when you need to. So if you're getting through setup and initial getting ready for testing, you can watch the modules before that you need to before testing, and then once you start testing, there's modules that you can access for during testing, and then there's the post-test voiding tests if you need to, filling out and resolving rejected student tests if you have any paper tests that were rejected for not matching records in Pearson Access Next, any updates that you need to do post-test. Other resources are available, avocet.pearson.com/parc/home. You can navigate there from avocet.pearson.com by just selecting PARCC. This is our document library where all PDFs or any one-pager documents or manuals, test coordinator manuals, test administration manuals, all documents are housed at this website and can be downloaded, printed, saved, however it would be easiest for you to utilize a document. And last and definitely most important, our customer support. Support can navigate you through Pearson Access Next, through the training center. They can help you load your students into Pearson Access Next. They can get you ready for online testing. Those hours of availability, Eastern Time, 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. We can be reached at 888-493-9888. You can always email the same call center at parc@support.pearson.com, and chat is available once you're logged into Pearson Access Next. There will be chat available, and you may chat a call center agent that can help you right away for any support you need in Pearson Access Next or for online training. I appreciate you attending today's training, and thank you very much.